Hi, everybody. Welcome to Crushing Out's Q&A. I'm just going to get my Instagram going, and then we will get started. Wish this wouldn't delay so much. It's like a little traffic jam. Wait, I think it's about to happen. Very exciting. And there it is. However, it's just my eyes on Instagram. I hate that. We still haven't fixed the problem. It's really not us, actually. We're working on the partners that we work with here. In any case, I will not spend much time on that. What I'd like to do is welcome you. I'm Dr. Dan Ratner. I'm here to talk about mind-body issues. This is Crushing Doubts Q&A every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern, and it's 2 p.m. Pacific. We are a couple minutes late today. I was actually filming some stuff for the podcast, so occasionally we may run over, but I'm going to try to be on time all the time. So I'm really looking forward to talking with you about mind-body issues and how you can get better from these things. Why do I do it? Because I suffered from 8 years of chronic everyday back pain. And when I think back on it, it feels like a different lifetime. I can't believe it was, I know it was me. I experienced it, but it's just hard to believe how different your life can be when the symptoms go away. Now, it's not that hard to imagine because we all imagine it when we're in that pain. What would it be like? But most of the time, we don't think we can get there. In fact, I didn't think I could get there pretty much the whole time. But then I discovered the works of Dr. John Sarno, and I found out, wow, we have the wrong picture of just about everything when it comes to chronic pain, and it turns out a lot of other things. Just getting the information made me realize there was nothing wrong with my back in any kind of structural, physical, or enduring medical way. And that information, which was all science and logic, got me so convinced that I would be fine that it actually changed what went on in my physiology. And that's what mind-body symptoms are. They're what goes on in your brain becomes what goes on in your body. So we basically have 3 areas that that we're affected by in this. It's our feelings, our thinking, and our relationship with ourselves. So as I was figuring this out, I started putting words to what I was learning. I started putting labels on how to understand different things. And I found out that what worked for me, which ended up working out for a lot of other people, is to organize it into what I called 3 columns, which I got the name because I would just have a piece of paper and I would divide it up into these three areas so that I could figure out what was going on. And as it turned out, these areas are about emotions. They are about doubt, which is basically thinking, and they are about power, which is your relationship with yourself. So emotions column symptoms relate to the acute onsets and upticks in symptoms, the beginnings, right when it starts or when a symptom that you've been having for a while suddenly goes up. The doubt column symptoms, those are the symptoms that are seemingly chronic. They seem like they're always there, or they're incredibly recurrent and incredibly persistent. And then there are what I call power column symptoms. Those happen with symptom plateaus where you've gotten a lot better, but for some reason you're not getting all better and you don't know why. That's about conflicts with the self. So when I answer questions today, my goal is to get you the information that you need so that you can be confident you can get better. My brand is called Crushing Doubt. It's there so that you can get all of your doubts down, get certain that you can get better. And those 3 columns all feed into your certainty. In the doubt column, it's directly dealing with the doubts. But in the emotions column, it's understanding what's going on with your feeling states. And in the power column, it's understanding what's going on in your relationship with you and what needs to change. So when I answer these questions, I'm going to be answering them through the columns lens. I'll talk about these 3 different columns and give you a sense of how you can get better using these methods. One last thing to say before we get started, which is getting your questions answered, I found, is the most important part of getting better because mind-body issues rest on a faulty understanding of what's happening in the body. We've been scared into thinking that we're very vulnerable and that there's all these structural issues and that we'll decline and go, in the wrong direction as life goes on. And all of those messages, fortunately, are not true. When it comes to pain and other symptoms, that is not true. So I am going to start in on questions. At a certain point, I'll pause and talk about some of the resources available to you, but I'll mention one before we dive in, which is simply my book. Actually, tomorrow is the 1-year anniversary of my book launch, so that's very exciting for me. But it's also exciting to see how far we've come as a community in that time. We sold a lot of books. We've gotten a lot of information to people. We've gotten a lot more people aware of mind-body issues. And that's what I'm here for, to change the whole dialogue so that, unlike what happened to me, where I couldn't get the information, I can, and you can, and hopefully everybody can. All right. So you can get my book, Crushing Doubt, on Amazon. And if you've gotten a lot out of the book and you feel positively about it, please consider writing a review. It really, really helps people notice. They say, oh, look how many people have read this. And, if we can get that like over 100, a lot of people are going to say that book clearly has something that's worth checking out. I think some people are saying it anyway, but right now we've got 35. We need to get more. So please help me out. It doesn't even matter if it's like the greatest review of all time, or if you don't feel like you have that much that you can say, or you don't know how to put it into words. A positive review is a major, major help. Okay, let's dive in with some questions. Rudy, good to see you here. Hey, Pain Detective. That's his nickname for me, which I love, Rudy. Thank you so much. Much better here. Glad to hear you're much better. It looks like I see. Much better on YouTube is what you're saying. Yes, much better on YouTube than Instagram. Right now, we're having that Instagram problem. We're working on getting it fixed, but it depends on our partner in StreamYard to get that done. Rudy says, would you say fibromyalgia is almost the same? Because from what I did, my research on it almost looks like the symptoms are the same. Now, I assume, Rudy, you're talking about are the same as mind-body symptoms. And not only is fibromyalgia almost the same, it's exactly the same. Fibromyalgia is a mind-body symptom. It is a mind-body issue. And fibromyalgia, for people who don't know what that is, it's like pain across the body and varying forms. What that really is the mind and the body generating symptoms in many different places. And my column system can help with that in multiple ways. The emotions column can help people understand, why does it pop up all of a sudden, or why does it go up all of a sudden? My doubt column can help people see how thinking that you've got fibromyalgia or that you're stuck continues, it perpetuates what goes on first up here and then in your body because of it. Power also will relate, because people's relationship with themselves can often relate to the enduring pain that they have. But really strong symptoms that are enduring, that's the doubt column. Typically speaking, you won't get much work done in the power column until you do the work of the emotions and doubt column to get control of your symptoms. But fibromyalgia is the same? Yes. And from your research is obviously headed in the right direction. Thanks, Rudy. Rudy asked, how's the audiobook coming? I'm excited about it. I am finishing up the first reading of chapter 8 tomorrow. And there's only 10 chapters. So right now I've got 75 pages left to read. And after that, it's all about getting the cadence, not the cadence. I got the cadence right as I read each sentence. That's part of why it took so much work. But I have to get the spacing between the sentences right, so that when you're listening to it, it's the right pace to be listening to. And then after that, it's just a sound edit and we're done. So I don't know how close we are, but the reading is the hardest part of the work. Next week, I'm planning to get chapter 9 done. The week after that, chapter 10. So we're looking at the end of February is looking like I'll have that ready. Then there'll be some editing, and I'm hoping in March. March or April should be the target date that we'll have that out to you, and I'm very excited about that. Thank you for asking. Okay, we're going to hop over to Instagram with some questions. Okay, Beth Tacombe, good to see you here. Hi, Dan. I'm watching from Instagram, but I have been reading your book. I'm not very far in, but I don't know if it's psychological, but it is helping me a little bit. I still have a long way to go. So Beth, it's great that it's helping you already. I do think that, one of the reasons I wrote the book is everything I do is things that I wish were available to me when I was suffering. And Dr. Sarno was the greatest companion I could have in guiding me through those things. And I tried to give my version of what I would want people to be saying to me. I remember all the worries that I had at the time, and I tried to address all of those. So keep reading. There's a lot more in there. Okay. Yes, Rudy says he's having the same problem on Instagram, so he went over to YouTube. By the way, feel free to do that, guys. I totally understand. I would not want to be staring at my eyes either. Nothing wrong against my eyes, but you can't see the rest of my face. Okay. Beth then says, also want to ask you something. I have suffered years with upper stomach pain and have always put it down to acid reflux. Could this be a mind-body symptom? Yes, that is very, very likely to be a mind-body symptom. It's really interesting because the way things are talked about in the world, in society in general, and certainly in the medical community, is that everybody's just got these medical issues all the time. But what it really discounts is that we are mind-body beings. We're constantly expressing what's going on in our minds. And if you think about it, it makes sense. One minute you're fine, then you're feeling sad and you start crying. I mean, if an alien came down from outer space, they'd be like, "Oh, you have crying disease." Who knows what they would label it as? So this is the same thing. Our bodies are just expressing so much. And there can be other causes for acid reflux, but in my experience, very, very rare it would be anything but mind body. Beth, let's do follow-up questions as needed. Stephen had a similar question, I think. Can silent reflux be mind body? History of pain moving around, but this is new. So my rule of thumb is this: if the body can do it, the mind can use it. So that means if the body's capable of having reflux, if it's capable of having fibromyalgia, then, and when I say having, I don't mean as an illness or a disorder. I mean just having the symptoms. Then the mind can make it happen. Now, Stephen, let's do follow-up. But the history of pain moving around, by the way, that's one indication of things being mind-body. If your symptoms aren't moving around, don't panic, because that just means you've got a doubt column issue. Symptoms moving around is probably more emotionally based, but it's all mind-body. So let's keep exploring it. Okay, we're going to get back to some questions coming in from YouTube. Warren, good to see you here. Dan, I was just thinking how grateful I am to be working with you. That's an honor. Thank you, Warren. You are incredibly skilled at helping me figure out where I am in your process, and your process is brilliant. Wow. Warren, you made my day. That means a lot. And for multiple reasons, because it also means that I'm making sense to people who are just trying to use science and logic to get out of these symptoms. We've made huge progress. And let me address something here. Progress isn't just about symptom reduction. It is also about being on the way to the right thinking, more optimism, a good insight, a sense of why you can get out of it. And that's really what Warren's talking about. And I think it is really important. It's one of the reasons my membership is so important, because you can read the book and I like to think it's really great. And you can talk to me on these Q&As, and I like to think that's really great. But the memberships allow you to work directly on the symptoms and implementing the system. And I can walk you through each part of the process. So what Warren's talking about is that I'm kind of like a guide. If you were down at the base of the Grand Canyon and you needed to get out, you'd probably want to have a guide. Well, it's the same thing here. I can guide you out. And the memberships are available on my website, www.crushingdoubt.com. And they are only $100 a month. I'm not saying 100 is nothing, but for the month, what does that mean you're getting? You are getting 3 meetings a week with me. They're over 2 hours each. You also get to write in written questions on my website, and I get back to you within 48 hours on those. So you're getting a lot of stuff for $100 a month. That's over 24 hours of access directly to me. And one way that it's different than this Q&A is that the follow-up that can happen on a Zoom call, and these are recorded also, so you can watch them again to learn see what you learned and review things, is that there's so much more back and forth in any one sitting that we can get even further. Like when I answered Stephen's question just now about silent reflux, he might say, oh, well, let me explain, but it's this symptom. Maybe there's specific things he wants to know about. He can ask me specific questions. I can ask him specific questions, whoever it is. And we can get further in one sitting, so much further. And so Warren's been doing that and getting guided through this process. And Warren, thank you again for the kind words. I can't tell you guys how much it does mean. I mean, of course it means a lot, but one thing just to give you a sense of how useful comments like that are, it really keeps me going. It takes a lot of energy and work to do this, but I'm excited to do it. I want to be doing it. When I hear I'm making a difference, it makes a big difference to me. Susan says, Dan, I agree with Warren. Thank you, Susan. And Jamie says, hi, Crushing Doubt family. Good to see you here, Jamie. And we are really becoming a closer and closer knit community, which is great. All right. Russell Crane's music. Good to see you here. Hi, Dan. How do you recommend navigating relationship issues from a columns perspective? Okay. Um, it's funny. I love all questions, but sometimes I'll get a question. I'll be like, oh, it's like a juicy steak to dig into. So here's the way I would think about it. You've only got three columns, but that means there's three different ways to look at it. And that's going to be true for anything you're looking at. If you're looking at it from a relationship perspective, let's go through the columns and talk about what you can see. So within that relationship, you're having all kinds of emotional experiences, and those can lead to onsets and upticks in symptoms. So let's say you're talking to your partner and then you suddenly feel a headache coming on, or your stomach doesn't feel so great. Well, one thing you can do is to think, wait a minute, what's happening here? And when I say that, I'm not talking generally. Like I'm not saying, oh, I'll figure out that I'm upset or I'm angry. That's not specific enough in the emotions column. Part of the work of the emotions column is to get really, really specific. I was upset because this person said this, which reminded me of the way that my mom used to talk to me, and I felt belittled. And so I totally made that up, but you can get there so you can get very specific information and relief from those symptoms, Russell. That's how the emotions column would work. From a doubt column perspective, doubt is about certainty about your symptoms. So if in the relationship they're driving some uncertainty about your symptoms, you can use the doubt column to protect yourself from that. But more often than not, the doubt column would be used in what I call level 3 doubt. There's 3 levels of doubt. Level 1 doubt is it mind body or not? Level 2 doubt is my mind body symptom harder to master than others? And level 3 doubt is there anything that's going to hold me back from getting better? Something about me. And so relationships can tend to bring up a lot of level 3 doubt. Is there something wrong with me? Relationships can be challenging and they bring up all kinds of things. And so what I would say is the primary way that you're going to be working on relationship issues in the columns capacity, especially when it's not specifically about getting symptoms under control, is the power column. The power column is where you're going to learn a new way of understanding what your body's symptoms are saying to you about who you are and what you need. And so your body is going to mostly be informing you from a relationship perspective, Russell, about what's going on in that relationship. You're going to learn a ton about yourself. And even better, in the power column, you're going to be able to make adjustments, to make changes so that you can live differently. So the body starts to inform. Now, let me say one last thing about this. The column's flow is bring down doubt, learn about emotions, flow into power. The reason I say that is you've first got to bring down doubt so that you can just see everything. Doubt covers over everything. But once you get this is all mind body, I can manage this. I just need to think about how this makes sense. Suddenly you can see things, and you can see things in the other columns. The emotions and power columns are both emotional columns. The emotions column is where you gather information on awareness. The power column is where you decide what you're going to do with that awareness. So that's my long answer, Russell, but hopefully a helpful one. Okay, Patty Flowers, good to see you here. Can you explain why the symptoms that each of us have does not matter, why it's all the same? Okay, interesting question, and I'm going to answer it in a particular way. Here's what I would say. The reason that they're all the same in some capacity is that they're just mind-body symptoms. So what it means is that the mind is using some aspect of the body, some system or some symptom, to communicate something, to express something, to feel something, to process something. So if that's the case, you could be really angry at your best friend and not want to know about it, and it could manifest as a headache. It could manifest as blurry vision. It could manifest as a weird taste in your mouth. It could manifest as gastrointestinal distress. It could manifest as your knee hurting. It could manifest as your foot going numb. So the reason they're all the same is our bodies are basically just like an extension of your brain. So it's really about what is it choosing to express where and when. So now here's where it doesn't feel like it's the same, which is especially in doubt column symptoms. Doubt column symptoms, it's like the way that you're processing it is getting really hung up in one area. So most of your relationship to your body starts to become in that area. When I had back pain, I thought about almost nothing but my back. Was I thinking about my arm? No. Was I thinking about my nose? No, almost never. It was like I was becoming my back. So from a doubt column perspective, it seems like it really matters because that's where the focus is. It doesn't matter for the treatment, but where it does matter at the beginning of the treatment is to break you out of doubt. Because if you have doubt, you're going to be convinced it does matter where these are. Here's a good example. A lot of times people will say, well, I just wish I had I don't know, pain in my shin or something like that. But instead I have it in my back and it's everywhere. Or sometimes people will say, I have dizziness. I would rather have it anywhere because that's disabling my whole life. And I'm not saying they're not onto something with that. I get what they're saying. But the thing is, when people are saying it matters where it is, they're in the grips of doubt, because that's a narrative that is saying it matters because that's where I'm stuck. It matters because that's where my suffering is and it doesn't move. That's when it feels like it matters. But Patty, if we break doubt, if we get you certain that it is mind body, that there's nothing that can stop you from getting better and that it is reversible and you can do it, then it's not going to matter where it is, because then it all works the same. That's when it all works the same. Let's have some response to that, Patty, as needed. Okay. All right. Beth Tacombe has another comment on Instagram. Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but it has been so many years I've suffered like your back pain. It's almost like my mind knows where my weakness is, and it goes straight to my stomach as it knows. I also get a racing heart, I've noticed. That's a new thing that has occurred. So symptoms do often go back to the same old place. It's not because there's something wrong. It's because that is an active pathway of mind-body experience. It's like your go-to method. It's a skill set, actually. It's not a skill we like having, but it is basically a skill set. Sorry, I had a question up there. Essentially, your body's used to that. Now, some people talk about that as, oh, well, that's because your neural pathways are really used to that. Now, that may be true to some degree, but I want you to know it's easily breakable. You do not have to have the same neural pathways for a long time. When you learn anything, your neural pathways change. You're not stuck with anything. So what we can think about is, yes, there are certain areas that the body is kind of used to expressing things about. But Beth is also pointing something really important out here, that it seems like it goes where her weakness, we'll put in quotes, is. And that is because doubt wants to be effective. It wants to be most effective. And what it does is it goes to the scariest symptom you can have, the one you would hate the most, or the one that you worry about the most, or the one where you have the most doubt. So it does go right where it's scariest, or it has the most access to you, which is why we've got to do work in the doubt column to not have so many areas that it can get us like that. Now, let me talk a little bit about what the work in the doubt column is. So in the doubt column, I talk about observing, articulating, and countering doubt. Observing doubt means calling it into question. It's amazing how doubt gets away with a lot of things just by virtue of pretending it's not even there. And the way it does it is you have a thought, and if you're not questioning it, you're just thinking it's true. So now you could have a doubt, but believe it's true. That's not really observing a doubt. That's having a doubt. You're living a doubt. But if you start calling into question and say, wait, is that actually true? Maybe it's not. That maybe opens a lot of doors. Then you can start articulating it, put it into words, see what you're saying. Because when you see what you're saying, that changes the self-talk. Now suddenly you can see all kinds of things that are going on that you weren't seeing before. And lastly, countering, which is using science and logic to get it under control in your mind, to say, no, this is not anything but mind body. I am going to be fine. Because that's one great thing about mind body symptoms. Once you're convinced it's mind body, and once you're convinced that you have some capability to alter what goes on in your mind, then you can't be stopped. You are going to get better. That's what happened for me with Dr. Sarno, and doing some research afterwards. And that's what's going to happen with each and every one of you if you keep working at it. Okay, Rudy says, I might have asked you this question before. Have you seen a lot of people with structure and non-structural pain recover in old age? Yes, I have. Age actually, fortunately, has nothing to do with pain and actually most symptoms. The only kinds of things that aging really, really affects are things like your reflexes do slow down, or you might lose some height, or your eyesight or your hearing might get worse. That does happen with aging, but fortunately, pain does not really apply to these kinds of things. Um, Range of motion can also get affected by age, but there's lots that we can do about this as well. So, bottom line, Rudy, is I've seen lots of people get better in old age. I actually, one of my favorites was I had a guy on a recovery story, Ron, who was having neuropathy. And, I think he was in his maybe late 70s or early 80s, and he recovered completely fine. Age has nothing to do with it. The only thing that age really gets in the way of here is that it causes more doubt. That's the thing. It just makes people think, well, I am getting older, so there's probably going to be things going wrong. Typically speaking, that's not true for any kind of suffering. It's about like functionality and capabilities, like eyesight does usually get worse with time. But the good news is those things can be addressed with things like glasses. So we can handle those. Chronic pain, the only way to handle it is to get rid of it. Okay. Harriet, good to see you here. Hi, Dan. As you know, yesterday I finally came to the realization that I don't deserve to have pain. I love when people get to things like that. The problem is I've lost that mindset. How can I regain it? Okay. So I think what we need to do, Harriet, is to track what got you to believe it and what got you to lose it temporarily. So temporarily is the key. When I think about mind-body experience, everything is moment to moment. And for people who are having symptoms that are always there, I understand that doesn't seem moment to moment. Neither did my back pain. It was always there. But that is a doubt column symptom. And the way I think about that is that it's like we're renewing the mindset again and again and again, second by second by second. So it looks completely unbroken. It acts completely unbroken, but it's something that I call consistently acute. It's always there, but acute means it could be made to go away with the right understanding at any moment. So that's different than chronic, which is there because of some kind of structural issue or something that you can't fix. So Harriet, that mindset coming and going, don't panic about that. What we can do is study what got you there, what allowed you to be there, and then what took that away. And I'll tell you one thing, this is my rule of thumb for everybody. You make sense and your symptoms make sense. This is a symptom. That thought process coming is a symptom, a good symptom. The thought process going is another symptom, not as good, but manageable. So we just have to figure out why. What happened in there? Now, here's the other thing, Harriet, is as we have these conversations more, and as you come to this more and more, that belief will actually solidify. Right now, you have a tentative belief at times, or maybe just that one time so far, that you don't deserve to have pain. Something probably set you off that made you feel like, oh, maybe I do. It could have been a date on the calendar. It could have been an email you got. Anything can really get your mind going in the wrong direction. But if we work at it, especially in the power column, you develop a better relationship with yourself in a way that you can maintain those gains. Okay. Let me just see. Beatrice said, hello, anyone. So I don't know, Beatrice, if you were just testing to make sure we can hear you, but we can. Oh, this is very nice. It's a love fest here. I appreciate it. Harriet said, I agree with Warren. You are amazing. And then Beatrice said, I agree. So thank you guys. Wow, we got even more agreement. We all agree with Warren, said Beatrice, and Shelby, thanks for agreeing as well. Okay, you guys are very sweet. Does really keep me going. Okay, Beth, back to you on Instagram. When I get the pain, I have started to say to myself and tell it to go away. And it's working sometimes, but not all the time. Thank you again, Dan. Okay, working sometimes is a sign that belief is growing. So Beth, it's going to work pretty much all the time once your belief is really, really strong. When it doesn't, we could dip in and say, is there some doubt getting in the way? Is there an emotion that's yet to be discovered? Has my power dipped? There's only 3 columns. There's only 3 reasons symptoms happen. But you are developing good self-talk. And that's when you're talking to yourself, you're saying things in a more positive way, And what causes you to do that? Good information. You just started my book, Beth, and it's going to get better and better because there's a lot of great information in that. Okay, Patty says, if pain is constant 24/7 for a number of years, does that mean that the neuroplastic symptoms, that the nervous system is highly dysregulated? No, it does not mean that. Not at all necessarily. There are times where that is kind of the case, but when I say kind of, I say that on purpose because it's really a mistaken notion. Even if the nervous system is really out of whack, it can change very, very quickly. It's all about whether you actually feel safe. So here's the other thing, Patty. A lot of symptoms, just like my back pain, 8 years of it, it had nothing to do with nervous system dysregulation. It had to do with the fact that I was thinking about things the same way. I was experiencing the same emotional stuff again and again, though primarily it was my thinking. The emotions, people say think about the emotions, but when doubt's really high, you're not going to get anywhere with that. Not then. You need to bring down doubt first. And it wasn't because of my nervous system being dysregulated. It was because I was thinking I've got a back injury. Doesn't matter what your nervous system is doing. If you believe you have a back injury and it's hurting that much and you have no reason to believe you're going to get better, it's going to continue. Now, Patty then says, why does pain come and go for some people but remains constant for others? Is the treatment the same? So in a way, the treatment's the same because for me, the treatment is always the columns. But within that treatment, there are variations on how we would go about things. For people who are having constant pain, that's about doubt. It's about your thinking. And that's not said as a criticism. That's actually said as encouragement that if we look at the thinking, it's going to help. And so I would work on the doubt column for somebody who's having symptoms all the time. But for somebody who's having them come and go, I'd be working in the emotions column. What's happening there with the feeling states that is making it come and go? Now, one other slight exception to that is that you can have doubt column symptoms that come and go, like migraines, for example. They do come on for emotional reasons at first, but they perpetuate and they ramp up and they happen more often because of doubt. So if the frequency is happening more often in a very, very recurrent pattern or is always there, it's doubt. So is the treatment the same? Yes and no. It's the columns. It is mind-body treatment. It's changing what goes on in the mind to change what goes on in the body. But there are specifics. In the emotions column, I would do what I call an emotions column theme menu, where we help you look at what are the emotions that cause these symptoms that you're not as aware of, so that you can get control of those acute comings and goings. But for a symptom that is persistent or always there, I'd be looking at doubt. What's the thinking? Observe it, articulate it, counter it. Okay. And I do it all, in my membership group. We can work on all three columns. That's what the system's for. Okay, Jamie, good to see you here. I love my mom, but she keeps on giving me fear. Today, she commented that everyone will pay for their sins. Whew, that'll stress somebody out. She also added, you are paying it with your dizziness. Then I immediately got an uptick. Jamie, my heart goes out to you on that. This sucks. This is not fair what she's doing. It's hard enough to beat back mind-body symptoms without somebody feeding you doubt. And even worse, you don't want somebody feeding you doubt like your mom, somebody of that great influence. It's really, really criminal what she's doing there. It's abusive, actually. It is truly abusive. And I'm not saying that as a criticism of your mom because I know you love her, but I'm saying it as a defense of you. It's not fair. And we're going to need to think about how you manage that relationship pretty much to tune out what she's saying. That's what I had to do, actually, for a lot of people who were not even being that abusive or aggressive directly. I still had to tune them out because it was causing doubt. So when I was getting better, I decided I'm going to trust just me and Sarno, nobody else. Until I'm better, it's me and Sarno, and that's it. So, Jamie, what I want you to do is to recognize your mom is having a problem. She is missing the boat entirely. I know she's got her religious beliefs, and there's nothing against the religious beliefs in general, but they're way too harsh. They're way too fear-inducing. They're way too judgmental of you. Personally, I think if there's a God out there, I'm not going to be judgmental like that. And you get to decide your relationship with God, not your mom. You get to decide your relationship with everything and everybody, not your mom. So you can still have a relationship with her, but I would really wall her off in your mind from having any legitimacy in what she's saying. You gotta take the source out. You gotta say, this is not a valid source for me anymore. Okay, hang in there, Jamie. That's a really big issue, but I will help you through that. Okay, Teresa says, I have been having hemorrhoids and anal fissure issues for a really long time. I've treated that before, actually. It is not an emotional based issue. It is discouraging when I think it might pass. I have a flare. I do not know how to proceed. How can I change my thought pattern? Okay, so first of all, I'm not saying it is an emotional based issue, by the way, Teresa. This is something that I would do, especially like in group. We'd have some back and forth. So again, if you want to join the group, it's on www.crushingdoubt.com. $100 a month to come talk to me. 3 meetings a week, over 2 hours each. You can write in questions, lots of ways to get information. So Teresa, one question that I would ask if we were in group is, how do you know it's not an emotionally based issue? And I'm not saying that to be challenging or obnoxious or anything like that. I'm actually gathering information. You might be right. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I want to know, because this is the kind of thing doubt does. It just slips it right past you. It's like, it's not that. And then you're stuck with it. So that would be one thing potentially to look at. But it also could be strictly a doubt issue. And I treated somebody with anal fissure issues. And this is not surprising to me, but hopefully it'll be useful to all of you to think about it this way. What we found is that it related to all 3 columns. Sometimes it was an emotions column issue. Sometimes it was a doubt column issue where she was thinking about herself as being in danger and not being able to heal well, and we had to work on doubt. And sometimes it was about power. There was something in the relationship with the self, and it was getting expressed through that. So, Teresa, I would put in a plug, if you're open to it, to thinking about the fact that most symptoms are actually all 3 columns. They just express themselves differently at different times, depending on which column is dominant. At the same time, with what you're saying, I think you're saying you want to work on doubt column issues in relation to this. And the thing that I would work on there is this. Those tissues heal very quickly. The only time they don't heal quickly is if you stay tense. And I'm not saying like you then have responsibility for it, but think about it. If those muscles are very tense and the skin's very tense there, it's much more likely to have some kind of tear because it's being pulled the whole time. So what you want to do is relax into the idea that if you just don't worry about it so much, it'll just go away. I've done this again and again with that one particular patient, and I've actually worked with one other on these things. And again, that was a huge key. Sometimes the key was recognizing there really was an emotion that was feeding the tightness of the muscles and the skin. So I'm not saying it is or it isn't one way or another, but the way to change the thought pattern is to bring down the doubt by saying everything heals. This should heal. And here's my rule of thumb about that. Usually it's about 2 to 3 days. It heals really fast. There's certain tissues that heal really, really quickly, and that's one of them. I hope that's helpful, Teresa, but let me know. Okay. Shelby, good to see you here. Sorry under these circumstances, though, because I see you got into an argument with your mom today. Oh, wait, you got into an argument and didn't have an uptick. Thought that was interesting. Any input, Dan? I don't believe it's power. Here's what I would say it is. I think that's actually a sign that your doubt is coming down. Because in the past, you might have had a trauma activation. That's when an emotional experience really gets you thinking in ways that are like, go back to all of your traumas. And that's something I call mega doubt. It's like the worst kind of doubt. But we are working on you bringing down trauma activations, and we are working on you believing that this work that we're doing together can work. And as you've gained trust in me, your regulation patterns have actually gotten better. You do have your moments where they can still be really bad, but you're working at that. And so this is a sign to me that the regulation is starting to stick. Now, I think that's lowered doubt. I don't think you're in power yet, but I think that's lowered doubt. Let's see what you think. Then Shelby said, maybe it's because I'm already at a big increase. Not sure. Okay, well, that also could be that you were maybe having a big symptom anyway, and you were like, I can't even bother with this. But I think there's something going on that's changing in relation to your ability to believe. Okay. Harriet says, just curious, I'm presently getting injections for macular degeneration. Is this eye disease mind-body? Wow, fascinating. I've wondered this myself, actually, at times. My grandmother had macular degeneration. And the interesting thing, as I see it from a potential mind-body perspective, is that she started getting it when my grandfather died. It was like pretty quickly after that. So that's interesting. What I would say about things like macular degeneration, as you know, I'm not a medical doctor, and there probably are some forms of macular degeneration that are just purely medical. And it may be that they all are, but what I would like to do is study this. I wish that the medical community, the psychological community, the society at large would say, why don't we just look at this? Why don't we do studies to see, do these things get affected by mind-body experience? Is mind-body experience when there's really deeply unprocessed emotional trauma? Shelby, that's not you. Sorry, I had to say that because I know what she's going to be thinking. When you have really unprocessed trauma, you don't even know you have trauma. When you know you have trauma and you're anxious all the time, that's getting processed. It may not be getting processed totally effectively, but it is getting processed. What I want to do is have people study, well, what happens if we look at this from a mind-body perspective? Is it possible that Alzheimer's or ALS or MS or all these other things can relate to deeply unprocessed trauma? The ACE studies certainly suggest that it would be very likely. Why? Because that's already proven that unprocessed emotional trauma is a major risk factor for cancer, heart disease, diabetes, tons of things. So why those things but not the other things? Macular degeneration to me is another one to study. Let's think about it and let's explore it. I'd be very interested to hear like what does the medical community say about that, but we need to take that also with a grain of salt. Okay, well we'll keep exploring that, Harry, but you know, I like to think of this thing that I call the positive maybe, which is why not? Why not explore it as potentially mind-body? Don't do things that are medically dangerous. Go get checked out by your doctor, but let's vet it through a mind-body ideology and see. And in the meantime, you might as well see if treating things for mind-body allows you to slow down these kinds of things or maybe turn them around altogether. I'm not sure. I'm not saying anything definitive about that. I'm saying we should study it. Okay. I think that Beatrice says, I think that age makes me have more doubt. You're right. So much life trauma behind me. Hard to think I can fully recover. And she meant to say hello to everyone, not anyone before. Okay. So age is a big one. And actually, I have a podcast episode coming out tomorrow. It's by a guy named Ron, or it's with a guy named Ron Kastner. And I actually filmed this a while back. I wasn't able to get it out to you guys until now. But we talk about aging and the mind-body process. So check it out. It's going to be coming out tomorrow, I think around 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. And it makes perfect sense. You know, as we age, there's naturally things we wonder about. But the good news is all of the evidence very convergently moves in the direction of, yeah, we decline in certain ways and we do unfortunately die. But what happens in terms of pain and a lot of these symptoms has nothing to do with age, nothing. And we have lots of proof of that. So we can talk more about it, but everybody should ask questions and follow up. Okay. Shelby says, how to get the strong belief. Agreed with good info. Good info, yes. Power is another. Knowing that you can believe in your own reality. Very key. Okay, we're going to wrap up soon, so I'm going to go through some of the questions at the end on the quicker side. Harriet said, thank you, Dan. You're so right. I also feel that if I got it once, I can get it again. So that was about getting to that place of believing she does not deserve to have these terrible symptoms. Susan said, Dan, why do symptoms get worse at certain times of the day? So this is one of those areas where if we were in group, I would want to say, okay, which times of day? What are you seeing? Because sometimes you realize actually that's not a pattern that really holds. That's doubt talking to me. And then other times it can relate to all kinds of things like your history growing up. It's very, very, very common for people to have symptoms generally at 3 times of day, and this is not biological at all. It's totally psychological. There's when you wake up, there's when you're going to sleep, and there's dinner time, or really around the time that day becomes night. And it comes down to psychology, Susan. If it's just about the time of day, it's going to come down to psychology. It could be waking up to face the day has its aspects that are difficult, or going to bed has a feeling of separation and loss, or loneliness, or scariness. Dinner time is a big one for people because that is a time when families often gather around a dinner table and the abuse began. Unfortunately, I wish it wasn't the case, but that is one reason that can happen. All right. Russell says, thank you, Dan. That helps a lot and leaves me a lot to consider. That was about how to think about relationships through the columns lens. Warren says, hi, Shelby. I know you have a lot of doubt and fear about your symptoms, just like I do. Once your fear goes down, I bet you will feel better, and then you can go from there. Happened to me today. Bingo. Fear is the number one key of when symptoms go super high. Bring down the fear. And how do we bring down the fear? By looking at what can make sense, looking at the information. Okay, Jamie says, thank you, Dan. I trust you. Excellent. Teresa says, I think you are right. It's all 3. So now we just did something, Teresa. We move you off of just looking at doubt. Okay. And now you want to look at all 3. Now, Teresa also said she tried that over and over again about maybe relaxing. But here's the question. Did you actually relax? And I don't mean that critically. I mean, sometimes we think we're relaxing, but really we're just trying to say we're relaxed, or we're trying to say we should relax, but we don't actually believe it. It's really about whether you believe it or not. But let's go back to this. I think you're right. It's all 3. Let's look in all 3 columns and figure out what we can find there. Okay? Harriet says the group is worth 100 times the cost. Thank you, Harriet. That's very sweet. Warren says, great news, Shelby. I agree. And let's see. That's why supper seems hard. Yes. Very, very kind of trauma-related time. Okay, I have a couple of questions on Instagram that I didn't get to, and I'm going to wrap up there. Let's see. Beth has another comment. Yeah, see, that's what it is happening to me. I've been under a lot of stress recently, so I'm putting it down to why it's been bad the last month or so. But when I'm not stressed, it's so much better, which is a great sign. Okay, Cody and family. Yes, the science is there. It is because it allows the cell danger response. Research has shown the moonrise gets stuck. You must have meant to type something else. And this has been shown with PTSD, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, and autism. Yeah, that's the other thing. A lot of the research is there, but nobody's talking about it, or they're not seeing it, or they don't know about it, or it's getting buried because people don't like it. So that's really interesting. Oh, edited. Yes, the science is there. It is called the cell danger response, and the science has been there for 8 years already. That's great. And this was not true when I started out in this process. The body gets stuck in a T2 dominant state. Research has shown this is true from PTSD, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, also now with autism and COVID. It looks like lingual COVID. I'm not sure what that is, but maybe you mean you must mean long COVID. That's what it is. Sorry. It can turn on any time in life, but we know it can be turned off. This helped me understand why the mind-body approach could work for me. Yeah, there's something called regulation of genes. They can upregulate or downregulate. And what that shows us is mind-body experience can really have a major, major influence over health. Yes, long-haul COVID. Okay. Thank you, Cody. Those are really interesting comments. I totally agree with you, but it sounds like you know more about the research that's out there on this than I do at the moment. So, I'm catching up on lots of things. This is another thing for me to look into, and that's very, very good to know. Let's see. Beth said, but I have been taking tablets for years too. I was diagnosed when I was 7, which is interesting. So, Beth, I don't know if you were talking about, that you must have been talking about the reflux. So, bottom line is so much stuff is mind body. And we need to do the research. We need to read the research that Cody is talking about. We need people to hear about the research. We need, and most of all, we've got to help people change faulty ideas that are standing in the way of us all getting better. Last comment. Cody says, I tried for 8 years to do the biomedical route and nothing worked till I started the mind body work. Well, I'm very excited that something's working for you. It makes perfect sense to me why it is, but even better, it's making sense to you. And that's what needs to happen. That's why I do these Q&As. That's why I do everything I do. I want it to make sense to you. So keep asking your questions. Guys, it has been a pleasure being with you. I will be here next Thursday at the usual time, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Keep your questions coming. And if you want to work directly with me, come to www.crushingdoubt.com, join the membership. It doesn't cost much even just to try it out. You can come see me. We can talk about what's going on and get you answers. Thank you, guys. Very good to see you.